Hey friends, I'm Kat. Welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be doing the Goodreads top 20 romance books. So I do this every year. I always read the top 20 in a few different categories. And I don't always, well, I just started posting last year, so I haven't really been vlogging it, but we will be doing that today. So just a quick overview for the month. We have romance today, and then in every week for the next month, we'll be having a new category. And there's really good chance, just based on how excited I am, I'm probably going to do two more, maybe three in January. So in December, take a look out for today, obviously, is romance, but then we're going to do romantasy, fantasy, and sci-fi. So we'll be reading the top 20 in every category and just really like diving in and seeing if these are actually worth your time. And also, like, are these really, do they deserve to be in the top 20 of the year for Goodreads? Do they actually have a merit to be as popular as they are? So I am incredibly excited to be diving into this. Where we are right now, there's 20 books. I have, I think, eight left to read in romance. I have 4 here, 2 in Kindle Unlimited, and then I think there's 2 more that I'm still waiting on my copies to come in. I probably will be doing them on audio at this point just because it does not seem like my library copy will be in. But I'm going to be doing a mix of vlogging the books that I haven't read already and sitting here and just talking to you about the ones that I have read. So we'll kind of be alternating that. Probably there'll be 2 books I talk about and then a little vlog section for the ones that I haven't read, and I'll just be filming these as we go. So let's just dive in. I was wrong. There's actually 7 that I need to read. So there is one that I haven't read yet and I am not going to read it, and that is Leather and Lark. Honestly, the main reason I'm not going to do this is because I tried to read the first book in this series, which was Butcher and Blackbird, and I DNF'd it because I thought it was terrible. And honestly, like, there's all of these trigger warnings going into this book and all of these intense things that are being told about, like, it's a serial killer romance and supposed to be a competition between 2 serial killers. And very honest, the main reason that I DNF'd it is because it was so boring. Like, if you are promising all of these things that are going to happen, I would anticipate like at least something interesting to be going on, and it was just a thorough disappointment. Like, nothing interesting ended up happening, and I could not get on board with anything that was going on. I didn't like the characters, didn't like the competition thing, was just minimal. The healing aspect, there wasn't enough information. Like, just through and through, I deeply did not enjoy Butcher and Blackbird. So I can't bring myself to read Leather and Lark. Just like, I've heard some people say it's a bit better, but I'm so at this point just not into it that this is going to be one that I'm not going to read. I'm trying to keep it minimal for video of how many I don't read. So thankfully only 1 so far for this. And the first book that we're going to talk about today is the first one that I've read, I guess, is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. And disappointingly, I do think that this is the only queer book on the list, which is slightly better than last year. I'm pretty sure they had 0. So, like, I guess technically 1 is an improvement, but I don't really think that we should consider this a win at all. So in this one, we're following 2 bisexual exes who are accidentally end up getting on the same food tour of Europe. They decide to go on this tour together, kind of reunite, but also for some reason decide to get into a basically sex competition to see who can hook up with the most people across Europe. Yeah, that was kind of the main gist of it, is that they are just competing to see who can hook up with the most people. I don't even remember what I rated this one. I think I gave it a 3. In reflection, I really think I should give it a 2 because I deeply did not enjoy this one. So first of all, I found the main character, Theo, to be pretty insufferable. Like, I really could not get on board with any of their chapters, and really just was intensely not into their character or like basically their views on any of this situation. The relationship between their 2 main characters, I just didn't find it romantic in any sense. So I felt like they very much should have just been remaining friends at the end of it, which is kind of where they started off. They started off originally, they were friends, eventually became lovers, broke up, and then kind of became friends before getting back together again. I really think that they would have been better off as friends. I don't think that they necessarily were like the most romantically suited couple in a lot of ways, and it just didn't work for me. I'm also, I think, very much not a second chance romance type of reader. I don't really think that there's been that many that have worked for me, so it could 100% be that as part of it. But at the same time, I didn't find it romantic. I didn't feel like I really enjoyed the characters, didn't love the premise of just a sex competition to get them back together. Like, for me, that personally wasn't something that I think makes a great romantic story. And also I felt very much like a lot of the emotional development that is supposed to be going on between these characters, it didn't feel like it was really happening on page. It felt, I guess this is like definitely a second chance romance type of issue, where I felt like all this emotional development, it happened in the past and we didn't see that, so we didn't necessarily believe or understand why they feel this intensely for each other. And yeah, overall the book just, it really significantly lacked something for me. There was so much missing and I didn't enjoy it, to be very honest. The first book that we'll be vlogging is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which I've started reading and I will come in tomorrow with some thoughts on it. Hello. So we're going to be starting the vlog portion of this and talking about Just for the Summer. So I am a little under 50% through, and I have to say I am deeply loving this one. So the basic premise of this, we are following two people. Both of them kind of think that they have this curse on them that makes it so that the next person that they date, no, every person that they date, when they break up, that person goes on to find their, like, the love of their life, the next person they date. Did that make any sense? I don't know. But our main character, our male main character, Justin, for some reason I thought his name was Charlie. Justin posts on Reddit about it because he kind of did like an Am I the Asshole thing, just talking about the silly scenario with his best friend and the fact that his best friend is now dating his ex. Our other main character, Emma, reads this and is like, oh shit, that's me. I have the same thing. So she messages him and they kind of like start a joking, texting thing. Eventually it turns into calls. It turns into like, they pretty much call each other every day and chat. She ends up deciding, well, he propositions her first to say, hey, maybe we should date. Maybe we should try dating each other, and then when we break up, we'll both find the loves of our life. And she's like, yeah, why not? That sounds perfect. So she's a travel nurse and basically ends up getting a contract to spend the summer in his hometown in Minnesota. So she's spending the summer there. They're going to date for a month, which is usually like her minimum for somebody to go find love. They're going to just casually date each other for a month and then break up afterwards, go on their separate ways with the theory that afterwards they are going to, you know, find the loves of their life afterwards. And I have to say, I'm absolutely loving this so far. I have really been enjoying Abby Jimenez's books lately, and especially in this series. So they're all loosely connected romances. They really don't need to be read together. But I've been really loving just the different tropes that she does, the different relationships. And there's been a lot of mental health rep in these books too that I think is truly perfection. And yeah, I'm loving this. I think our male main character is going to probably go down as one of my favorite romance characters of all time, because he is just like so quirky and weird, but in the best way possible. Like he's funny, he's really trying, he's just cute, he's romantic, and he's just genuinely like somebody that I would really see myself wanting to date as well. So I finished Just for the Summer last night, and honestly, unless things like drastically change, I think this is my favorite romance that I read this year. Like looking at the ones that I have left to read, I honestly don't think anything can top this. Like I really would be shocked if this is not the one that ends up being in my #1 spot, which is kind of wild. Like I really didn't think anything would be able to top like Funny Story by Emily Henry, but here we are. I just absolutely love these characters. I thought that their romance was so refreshing, and just how into each other they were was fantastic. And this one, it didn't have any miscommunication or any of the tropes that I tend to typically dislike in romance. Like a lot of their issues stemmed from very realistic things. So them dealing with trauma, them dealing with like extreme life circumstances and things that like really they need, like especially our female main character, things that she deeply needs to work on with herself, like things that have happened to her throughout her whole life and have really impacted her to like a crazy degree. Their romance, it was just so sweet. Everything about this I absolutely loved. I think the male main character is probably going to go down as like one of my favorites that I've read in like ever. He was so cute. He was so loving. He like just like I have a little boyfriend crush on him right now. Like he was just so cute, and everything about the relationship was amazing. It was just done wonderfully. So 5 stars. I do very much think this is going to be my favorite of the year. On the opposite end of the spectrum, here's one I did not like. So in this one we're following Charlie. He is a screenwriter who's like this incredibly well-known famous screenwriter, and he has written a rom-com that is terrible. In comes Emma. They have the same agent, and she's brought in to help him rewrite it. She is kind of like a screenwriting, I guess a writing professor. She has been trying for years to get like her works off the ground, and has also been living the last 10 years as her father's caretaker. So she is brought in to rewrite this script that is a nightmare, and he does not he doesn't care. He doesn't want it rewritten. He just wants passable garbage. It's kind of how he says it, because he is doing this rom-com as a favor to the studio, basically to greenlight his like passion project. He very much is like, I don't actually want this to happen. I'm just writing it so that, you know, I can go ahead with what I want. That's okay. The premise was fine. My biggest issue is that our main character, the male main character, he was trash. He constantly was downplaying and like, not downplaying, putting down everything that Emma, the female main character, liked. He was constantly like talking about how romance is trash, how rom-coms are garbage, like all these things. And like, just, she overhears him multiple times, like not once, like 3 times, talking about how he thinks this project is a waste of time and he's just putting in the hours. And this is while they're like working intensely together and she is putting her 100% into it. She keeps overhearing this and like doesn't seem to have an issue with it. At one point, like he thinks that he is getting sick and does the rational thing of completely blowing up and pushing her away in every like ways that I personally think you cannot come back from. I just thought he was an incredible asshole this entire book, and like there was nothing about him that made this feel romantic. Nothing about this book that felt like, you know, a proper romance. It really just felt like the writing was fine. I think Catherine Setcher is a good writer. I had no issue with that. I just hated him as a male main character. I thought he had like no redeemable qualities, and just everything about the romance was terrible for that reason. So I give this one 2 stars. Like honestly, the writing is what saved it. It was very decent that way. I just like, it was so angry while reading it, because you don't want to see a male main character, like you don't want to see your love interest just constantly putting down the other character's passions and constantly like talking down on how what she loves is so stupid. It's not something that you want to hear. Hi. So I'm halfway through King of Sloth right now and figured I would come in and just give a little update on it. So in this one, this is like a series of like kind of connected standalones of like a group of friends who are all like, there's always a millionaire or a very rich man. Usually the woman is kind of rich too, but anyways, in this one we're following Xavier. He is a well-known party guy. So he's somebody who has been like in the tabloids, really like in the media for being like an intense party guy, and has a terrible reputation with the media because of that. So because of this, his family hires a publicist, Sloane, to come in and try to manage his reputation, to kind of keep him in line and like keep him from causing any further embarrassment to them. Sloane is like a very well-off publicist. She has her own firm. She's from background of money and very high-powered clients. So she is working very closely with Xavier, very much keeping on top of him, keeping him like in the best of circumstances. His father ends up passing away, and in the will it stipulates certain conditions for Xavier to inherit all of the money. And there's very specific things where like he has to become CEO of a business, and there's a certain number of people who have to sign off on this at his 30th birthday by saying that like he is fulfilling things in a good way. He's meeting the terms of his inheritance. He's like succeeding at what he's doing. So he decides to basically do what he knows best and open a like exclusive nightclub. And we're following that right now. So he's trying to open the nightclub to get his inheritance, and Sloane is one of the members of this board who votes to see whether or not he succeeds. They are also flirting like crazy, and they're definitely going to get a romance. They're definitely going to get together. And overall, this is fine. I wouldn't say like anything too crazy either way. It's not spectacular. It's not terrible. It is just perfectly fine. I don't necessarily love the characters. I don't necessarily love their relationship, but I do enjoy these books mainly for rich people doing crazy shit and rich people being very like ethically ambiguous, very morally gray. I enjoy those things quite a bit. So this one, it's fine. So I finished King of Sloth and I'm gonna give it 4 stars. This is just one of those series and just authors in general, like Anna Huang. I eat her shit up so much. Like every one of her books, I can guarantee I'm gonna at minimum think it's like a 3.5. I might not be like obsessed with it, but I'm going to come out of every one of them having a solidly good time. And no matter what, I am going to just genuinely be happy with what I read and genuinely like enjoy the experience. So no, these characters weren't necessarily my favorite. I do have to say though, I really enjoyed Sloane, the female main character. I much preferred her to Xavier, the man. He was just like, I don't know, I don't really love that like party boy, doesn't quite have his shit together type of trope. That's just like not necessarily my thing, but I did enjoy Sloane as a character. She had some very interesting family dynamics going on that we explored, and she was just really a character I rooted for. Like, she was dealing with a lot of shit of having a pretty terrible upbringing, and it was just really impressive seeing the way that she dealt with everything. And yeah, I really liked her as a character. The relationship overall, it was fine. It was just like, you could see they bring out the best in each other, and there were just like some interesting things going on, some things that I enjoyed. Like, I just really liked the story in general. And this one had quite a few like callbacks to other characters we've seen in the series. Like, they were heavily involved in this plot, which is nice. So yeah, I'm giving it 4 stars. Like, it's solidly good. If you've read one of Anna Huang's books and you've enjoyed it, I can guarantee you'll like this one too. Like, it's just one of those, like, if you have enjoyed it, you are not going to be like disappointed by any means. So no, it was good. What can I say? I just like her books in general, and they really like tend to do it for me every time. And now we're going to talk about 2 more books while I finish getting ready before we start vlogging the next one, which I have started also. So we're going to talk next about This Could Be Us by Kendi Ryan, and she is an author that I am very happy I discovered this year. This blush might be insane. We'll see. It's the liquid Moon Prism liquid blush in the shade Fugo Fuchsia by Lunar Beauty. Just tap on a little. God, I already can tell I put too much on. So This Could Be Us by Kendi Ryan. She is an author who I found this year, and I did read this one quite a bit earlier on in the year, and I fell in love with it. There's 2 books in the series so far, so they're like standalone. Yeah, that's a lot. They are like connected standalone, so we're following the relationships of a friend group. And in this one, our main character, she is in kind of what you could say, well, very much, she is in a terrible relationship with a man who does not value her, who does not respect her, who really just seems to be there. He makes money and does nothing else. Like, he has no other value in her life. He ends up getting caught. I believe he's stealing money from the company and goes to jail. So our main character, Soledad, she ends up kind of having to restart her life, because even though she wasn't necessarily still in love with this guy, he was still her husband, she was still committed, and now she's realizing that she has to really start over her life and find a new way to take care of herself and her 3 daughters. And in comes our male main interest, who is actually an accountant who is the one who figured out that all of this money had been getting stolen from the company. So Soledad ends up working alongside him to kind of help put her husband behind bars and figure out exactly what happened. And at the same time, they end up falling for each other. And I really enjoyed so many aspects of this relationship. So a lot of it is really like her trying to find a way to be happy in a relationship and really like actually stand up for herself and find what she wants. So she obviously had not been happy by any means in this relationship beforehand, and really like had been taken advantage of in so many ways. Just her time, her energy, like all these things, they were not respected at all. She has to find a way to support herself and her children, and just really like trust any new person who's being brought into her life. And at the other time, our male man interest, who I can't remember his name, it might be either Joseph or Aaron, that might be the name of one of his kids, who knows, but he's a single father. He has 2 sons with autism, and they're on varying degrees of the spectrum, but he very much has, like, he's honestly an incredible father from what we see, has an incredible relationship with his ex-wife, but a lot of his life revolves around taking care of his sons and making sure that they are living their best life possible. Like, he's truly a great father. So it's the 2 of them just kind of trying to find happiness together and find a way to make their lives fit and really like move on from all of these things that they've dealt with. I deeply, deeply enjoyed this one. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was like just mildly, very, very slightly, not quite enough for me to say it's 5 stars. But at the same time, it was so solidly enjoyable that I like have 0 complaints about it. I think it just like, I wasn't 100% invested in the relationship. And at times it got a little bit more like fiction and as opposed to romance in certain, like, you know what I mean? Like it just wasn't 100% perfect for me, but this is like a very, very high 4 stars. And I truly think that this was like a fantastic book. I'm going to use the Divination palette by Robert Welch and Blend Bunny, and I think I'm going to go just kind of in the blue neutrals and the blues and just kind of play around with those today. So the other one that I'll talk about right now is a love song for Ricky Wilde, which we're following a young woman who her family is kind of this, like, I can't remember what business, but they are prolific business people. And she is expected that she'll be taking part of the business and become like heavily invested in it, heavily involved as all of her siblings are. But that is not the path for her. She's not somebody who's interested in it. She doesn't have that business savvy or like that desire to kind of be exact replicas of her sisters. And her one real passion in life is that she is really into flowers. She does a lot of flower arranging and she really, really wants to open a flower shop. So she moves to Brooklyn. Actually, I think it's Harlem. And she moves there, opens her shop, and really like starts her own life, starts having a happy life and really like making a name for herself. So we're following alongside a lot of her getting this flower shop going and the struggles that she has with like getting things happening, and also just like these joys that she's finding while starting her own life, making friends, and really getting her business off the ground. And we're also following the story of a musician from the 1930s. So I believe it's 1930s, 1920s, but he is, I think, a jazz musician in New York at that time. And we're seeing a lot of his story of how he became really popular, how he was living at the time. And there is a very like interesting way that these stories interconnect. So he ends up becoming a part of her life, and we're following part of that as well. So the romance itself, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily my favorite part. I wasn't super invested in the romance in this book, and I think that was kind of the failing point for me. Like, it's one that I wish I had been a little bit more into the romance itself, because I think that would have definitely made this book a little bit better for me, because I did ultimately give it 3 stars. It for me wasn't really anything that like was much better than that, because unfortunately I couldn't get invested. I couldn't really care for the characters as much as I wanted to, and I didn't really feel much for the relationship itself. It had a little bit of like a not magical realism, but it had a little bit of a magical twist to it, which felt kind of weird. Just in the context of it, it felt a little strange, and I wasn't fully into it because of that. And it was one that I really think I could have liked it more, but I wasn't fully there for the romance. And I'm definitely disappointed, because the last book I read by Tia Williams, which was 7 Days in June, was one of my favorite romances of that year. So I was really hoping that this one would be a little bit better, and that it'd be one that I'd come out like again having one of my favorite romances ever. But unfortunately this one just didn't fully work for me, and I am very disappointed about it. Okay, I just finished up my eyeliner and mascara. So the one that I'm currently reading is Love of My Afterlife, and I'm listening to this one on audio. So we're following this woman who like accidentally dies. She's home alone and chokes on like a burger and dies. And from there she goes to the afterlife, where while she's in this place, it's like, I think they call it Nevermore. She's kind of in this waiting room to be brought in with her death counselor. She runs into this man and they instantly hit it off. Like, they have unreal chemistry, and then he disappears. So it turns out he was actually just having dental surgery, and sometimes when people are unconscious because of the drugs, they like accidentally pass over to the death realm. She ends up making a deal with her counselor that she can go back to Earth for 10 days, and if she gets him to willingly kiss her, she will be able to keep living, because the death counselor claims that this is her soulmate. So now we're following her, and she's on Earth trying to find this man, because all she has is his first name and first initial. She somehow has to find him and get him to kiss her. But I swear, this woman is the most socially inept and clueless person in the world. Like, I think that's kind of the point of her character. She's very much shown as somebody who spends all of her time by herself and doesn't really interact with anyone, like very much on on purpose. Like she has no friends, she has no life, she doesn't really do anything. That's very much her character, but it's just also like very annoying to read about because she just seems so intensely clueless and stupid in every single scene that we follow her in, and that is kind of grating on me. I can't lie. I'm kind of not enjoying that aspect because it is just not the most fun thing ever to read. I am not really loving her as a character, and this book, I can tell it's very much like supposed to be all these hilarious hijinks that she gets into while trying to find this guy, and every one of them is just so cringy, and I'm feeling so uncomfortable reading all of it. I'm also like pretty sure I know exactly where this romance is going, and if it's the way I think it is, I'm actually very excited for that and very much hoping it goes in this one direction. Otherwise, it just feels a little cringy and a little uncomfortable. So I finished up Love of My Afterlife, and it's hard because like I think that this had a lot of potential, and also I try to keep in mind that like when I'm going into a rom-com, my standards are not the highest. Like I don't necessarily need to go in and have like the most well-written thing in the world to like entertain me, and I will say this entertained me, but at the same time I just couldn't fully get into it, and like it just was a letdown in some ways. And I think part of it, so a lot of the things that were happening, they felt over the top. And again, some rom-coms, that's fine, but I did feel like our main character was just so cringy, and I just felt very uncomfortable in a lot of the things she was doing because it just felt so like, well, obviously uncomfortable situations, but just very, very like awkward and weird to read about. And I just couldn't enjoy that kind of thing. And I just kept getting like pulled out of the story because of it. So in it, Delphi, our main character who had died, she is on her little adventure to try and find the man who might be her soulmate and get him to kiss her. And at the same time, she like enlists her neighbor who she thinks is a private investigator. She doesn't really know what he does, but she enlists him to kind of help her track down this guy. And the two of them end up going on all these adventures to try and find him. And like every single time she almost finds the man that she's supposed to like seduce, and it's just something crazy kind of happens and he's no longer there. And yeah, it was just a little bit too wacky in some ways. So I will give it 3 stars. Nothing wrong with that. It was completely fine in that sense. It just did not quite get there for me. So another one checked off. And now let's talk about how to end a love story. So this one, I'm honestly surprised that this one got nominated. I really never ever would have expected it to end up on this list because it was not very romantic, and it was not very, I don't know, like nothing about it felt romantic to me. It felt much more fiction than a romance, and it just makes me really question sometimes like how books get nominated. So in it, we're following our main character who is a writer. She has written this book of like YA novels, I think, that have gone very popular, and the books have been picked up as a TV show. So she's brought in to kind of help be one of the writers on the show, but also the main writer is somebody who she went to high school with. Also, they have a terrible past in that her sister unalived herself when she was in high school, and she did it by jumping out in front of the main male character's car while he was driving home. And that obviously has set like a terrible awkwardness and tension and weirdness between them, between their families, and they've never really been able to move past that, which makes 100% sense. It's just something that I don't see how you get over. Like, even though it wasn't his fault in any means, it just, the proximity to the event and just knowing that there was some sort of involvement makes for a very, very uncomfortable situation. So the two of them end up working together, and he really is trying to help her with her writing because while she is a good book writer, she is not a good screenwriter, and they end up getting involved and trying to like work through all these situations and work through the fact that all of this has happened and they have all of this dark history between them. And I really don't think that this was romantic, unfortunately. Like, it just had a few too many things going for it, a few too many things going on with them, and it really took me out of love the love story. Like I could not get like very invested in it because of that, because I just, every time I was thinking about it, I just kept getting taken out of it. And even like her parents have a very bad reaction when they start dating. I understand that. It's good to see them. They work through their trauma together. They've really like found a way to be happy. I just could not fully get on board from it, I guess. I don't remember what I rated this one. I think I gave it 3 stars because I do think that the writing was decent in this one. I just do not think that it was necessarily categorized right. Like I think it should have potentially been more marketed as women's fiction instead of romance. And let's also talk about Wild Love by Elsie Silver. And I honestly think that this is going to go into my most disappointing book. Well, one of my most disappointing books of the year, because actually before I went into this, I really was anticipating that this would be like a 5-star for me. I also for some reason have assumed that Elsie Silver is a favorite writer, even though going back I realized that everything I've read from her has been like a 3 or a 4-star. But for some reason I anticipated that this would be 5-star. I think also because this is a new series, and the trope going into it is that all of it is billionaire single dads. And yeah, that 2 of my favorite tropes right now. I love rich people doing rich shit, and I love single dad romances. And unfortunately this one, so it also is brother's best friend, which is another trope that I like. But unfortunately I felt that the relationship development in this one did not really give us anything. It didn't live up to what I kind of was hoping, and it didn't really have enough on page to make me fully believe in the relationship. Also the single dad aspect. So our main character, Ford, the male main character, he basically had donated sperm at one point, and it resulted in this daughter, Cora. Her father has passed away, so she ends up tracking him down, getting in contact, and he takes her in because her mother is not in a place to take care of her at the moment. And I really liked that in concept, but carrying out throughout the story, it did not feel like it ended up being that big of a plot point, which is kind of ridiculous, but it almost felt like they forgot that they had the daughter there, and all of her relationship development ended up being with the girlfriend Rosie instead of with her father. Like we saw so many things happen between Rosie and Cora where they basically ended up becoming friends, they ended up growing together, they ended up getting really close, and I felt like there was none of that with Cora and Ford. So there's just a lot of things that did not go quite how I expected, and a lot of things that I think could have been fleshed out so much better. And that obviously would have really contributed to making the book so much better. So I'm really disappointed in that, just because I feel like there is so many things that could have made this book so much better. Just like if we'd really fleshed out these relationships instead of just focusing on having smutty scenes, I think that would have improved it so much. So yeah, that one, I think I'm giving it a 3-star. I gave it a 3-star, I believe, but it could have been lower. I think I could bring that one down to 2 stars. It just unfortunately disappointed me very badly. And so now we are going to move on to the next book I'm currently reading, which is Daydream. So here we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. I am in the middle of it right now, and this is the 3rd book in her Maple Hills series, which is a college sports romance. We're following various members of a hockey team and their respective girlfriends. And in this one, so Henry, he is the current captain of the team, and Hallie, she's a very bookish, insecure person who her boyfriend, who had been her childhood best friend, recently broke up with her and said some really terrible shit, basically accused her of well, to be honest, he said some terrible shit, but he also was terrible in a relationship. You really get the vibe that he never put any effort in, and he was hardcore pressuring her for sex, which she wasn't ready for, and she rearranged her entire life to be with him, and he would make 0 effort with her. So we see her in a place where she's definitely vulnerable. She's unhappy, she is really feeling self-conscious about herself in so many ways, and thinking that nobody could love her. So she and Henry start up a friendship, and we are following right now as they kind of she is helping him with this class that he really Also, you might hear my dog. He is just having fun with his ball right now. She's helping Henry with this class that he's really struggling with, and he is helping her because she's trying to write a romance novel, and she realized that she doesn't have a lot of these experiences. So Henry is kind of taking her on all these dates and just hanging out with her, doing these different things with her to try and help her have all of these experiences that she feels like she's lacking. And I'm enjoying it. I do think it's cute. I also don't think I'm gonna love this one. Based on past experiences, I don't really love Hannah Grace books. I think they are enjoyable, but then that tends to be it. It tends to just be kind of like mid-range books for me. I mean, I hated Icebreaker, and the second book, Wildfire, enjoyed it. I think that this is, yeah, very much gonna be one that I enjoy, but it will not be a favorite. And otherwise though, I am definitely liking the relationship between Henry and Hallie. I think that it seems very healthy, very happy, and that is always a good sign. So I will finish that tonight, hopefully, and then come back with some more thoughts. So hello. We are done with Daydream, and I'm giving this 3 stars, but I do want to say I think this is the Hannah Grace book that I like the most. I think it's definitely the one that was like most enjoyable in so many ways, and the only one I'd say, I mean, I guess I enjoyed parts of Wildfire, but there was nothing about it that I actively disliked, which feels good. And honestly, I'm going to say part of it is that the smut was very, very dialed down on this one. And I think that helped because I feel like I've said this so many times, but I do enjoy smut in a book, but I want there to be a reason for it. I don't want it just to be sex scene after sex scene after sex scene. I want it to be like, you know, a good lead up to it. And then we have actual relationship development in between that. And a lot of her other books, I was not feeling that. But anyways, I enjoyed it. I think that our main female character, Hallie, had a really fantastic progression of like just learning to be herself, learning to be comfortable with herself, and actually standing up for herself, because she was, I feel like this is like, well, she describes it even like classic like oldest daughter issues of like, she took on so much of the family responsibilities and took on so many things of like just always trying to keep her family organized and always trying to be on top of like everything that's going on, always being the person who anyone can go to and she will drop everything to help them. And she finds kind of a balance of like, she does enjoy being that person, but it's not realistic for her to always drop every single thing and jump in to help everybody with everything, you know? So a lot of her journey is really finding that balance of like, she needs to make time for her own priorities. She needs to still be able to achieve her goals and not take on the emotional like labor and emotional, well, also physical labor that every single person in her life had been dumping on her, and also like what she actually deserves in a friendship and a relationship. Then Henry, our main character, male main character, I didn't feel as much for him. He, like, part of the intro, they're talking about how he, like, I definitely saw it where he very much has ADHD tendencies, but he is somebody who doesn't have a formal diagnosis, so that's not really addressed in this book. So you can see all of those tendencies there, and it's just stuff that hasn't quite been addressed yet, which is hard because like some of it he's very like, he has a lot of anxiety. He really like shuts everyone out when things get hard. He puts so much pressure on himself, and if something doesn't go his way, he completely like spirals, which I understand it quite a bit. But I don't know if he was necessarily my favorite male main character I've read from recently, but overall I think they were a pretty decent couple. Just, I can't really give it more than 3 stars because while I enjoyed parts of it, it just didn't have that emotional impact for me. And I find it very, very hard to relate to like a college romance. It gives me the same vein as YA, you know, like it's just something that I'm not quite in that phase of my life right now where I can necessarily relate to it. So 3 star, another down. And we might as well talk about 2 more books. So Swift and Saddled, this is another little like cowboy romance that was super fun. I can't remember what I gave this one. I like really should probably bring up notes on these before I start talking about them. But so it takes place on a farm, and this one we are following an interior decorator and one of the sons who works on this farm who is kind of like helping her out with the renovation. Yeah, so I give this one 3 stars. It was fine. It just it didn't really have a lot of the tropes that I necessarily get like super into. I think that like this series overall, very fun, very, very fun. I am obsessed with this idea of like a little farm, like not farm, a horse ranch. I guess that's what it is. And there was in this one, so the interior decorator, the main main woman, she's kind of like that black cat trope. She's covered in tattoos, very alternative. And then we have our cowboy who's like very golden retriever-esque. And I don't mind that. I don't mind that. It just, a lot of the other things that happened in the book weren't really like, I don't know. There was nothing about it that got me super excited, if that makes sense. Yeah. And like one thing too, so it does involve this renovation that's taking place. She's very involved and kind of in charge of it. But this is like such a stupid little complaint. We didn't get a lot of information about that renovation itself, which is like one of those really like weird little complaints that I tend to have in books where I want things to be fully fleshed out. If somebody is working a job, I want to know those stupid little details just to make it feel like it's really like we're living their life. And in this case, because there were so many things that we weren't talking about, we had like no details of this renovation, like no details of like what was going on in it. That kind of bothered me. That's just like one of my stupid little things of like, I want these people to feel like fully fleshed out characters and to feel a little bit more three-dimensional. And I feel like sometimes having those stupid like work details and just like a little bit more about their life, it adds into it. It's a silly thing, but it's something that I kind of need. But yeah, it was just like cute, fluffy, didn't really have a crazy amount of substance. So that is definitely something it needed more. It needed more for me to really, really get into it. And then let's talk about Play Along, which is book number 4 in Liz Tom Ford's like Windy City series, which is a bunch of interconnected sports romances. And in this one, we're following the younger brother from the last book and the team doctor for their baseball team. So she's technically a doctor, but because of an incredibly sexist boss, she's kind of like demeaned and not really allowed to actually perform medical services. So she's more there as like just helping with different like exercises, different stretches, like those kind of things. Well, she is a full-fledged doctor, just not allowed to necessarily perform it. But she has recently broken up with her ex-fiance, and this fiance gets engaged to her stepsister because it was like very much a business transaction engagement where her stepfather wanted him to marry into the family so that they could continue like a business arrangement. So she and this younger brother is Isaiah. They are in Vegas drinking one night, and she kind of, while super drunk, mentions that she does not want to get married after her stepsister. So they end up getting married. And because just the way the politics work out at work, because they work together and the team doesn't want negative publicity on them, they decide to keep playing off that they actually are married, fake that they're together, because she could potentially be fired if things don't work out, or if it was just like a drunken mistake, which it actually is. I gave this one 4 stars. Overall in this series, I think all of the books there's 2 4s, 2 5s. So really, really enjoy this series. I really enjoy the writing in general. And yeah, so as they're like faking their marriage and stuff, of course they fall for each other. And through all these like little hijinks and all these events that they have to do, they fall in love. And I think probably one of the only reasons why this isn't a 5-star is I feel like there was very much like an uneven love within this relationship. So Isaiah, he was 100% in from day one. And then Kennedy, the female main character, she was like very hesitant, which is understandable. She had just gotten out of this terrible relationship, but she was not very into this until, suddenly she was. But for so much of this, she was like not at all into this relationship. And it was just kind of weird seeing like Isaiah was so obsessed with her, so in love with her and all of this. And it was just kind of hard seeing that difference between them. Overall, really enjoyed it. Really, really think this series is fantastic. It just wasn't, my all-time favorite. I'm gonna go pick up another book and then I will come back to you. All right, so I started on the next audiobook that we're doing, which is the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. So this is the second book in an interconnected romance series. I decided not to read the first one because the wait time at the library was like 6 months. And also, I don't really think you need to in this type of series unless it's following the same couple directly. There was usually not a crazy amount that you need to like know from the first book. And I ended up getting this one on Audible because unfortunately, again, it was a minimum like 6-month wait time for this one from the library, which is disappointing. But in this one, it is this quaint little small town, and it sounds like every store has some cute little theme. Everything is like a little over the top. So the first book is like the cinnamon pumpkin spice lot pumpkin spice cafe. So it's like all the little things have cute little themes. You can 100% tell this is Gilmore Girls fan fiction in a sense. The writer's pen name, Lori Gilmore, and then just you can tell for sure that the vibes that they're going for is Stars Hollow. And then we are following the manager of a bookstore, the Cinnamon Bun bookstore, which basically is called that because every Saturday or Sunday they have a cinnamon bun day where people can come in and get them and do their shopping. But our main character, she is turning 30 in a few months and wants to have a fun summer before that happens. And we're following her and a fisherman, or I don't know if he's actually a fisherman, but he does like guided fishing tours. He has a huge crush on her and goes into this bookstore every week for a new book just for a chance to talk to her. And she ends up recruiting him to kind of help her with this fun summer. And also there's weird like notes, kind of clues that are being left for her in different books. So books in the store are kind of being defaced. They're being like, certain pages are being dog-eared and then certain quotes are being like highlighted. And she's taking all of them as, oh, somebody's trying to send me on an adventure to do these clues. And they're like honestly the stupidest ass like little things ever. Like one of them's to something about blueberries and another's about the beach. And it's just like she's really reading into it as, oh my god, I'm gonna have the craziest summer ever. It's dumb. But well, can you already tell how I feel about this one? But anyways, this guy ends up being recruited along with her and they start just doing these little adventures to try and like live out what she thinks are the clues being left to her in these books. And she's trying to figure out also who could be leaving them for her. Is it him trying to just seduce her into a summer with him? Is it one of her friends? Is it a bookstore employee? Is it part of her book club? Who knows? But this is just, it feels very stupid. I'll be very honest. It is not really captivating me in any way. I don't think I like the relationship too much between our main characters because I don't know, like it feels weird. These are ones that I always go into where like I find it weird when one character is so much more in love than the other, because the fisherman is like 100% into her and our bookstore person is like, she's into him but also is thinking of him as a good time only, and it's kind of feeling weird that way. I don't love their dynamic. I don't feel the chemistry with them. I think that this is the stupidest flaws ever to like these little clues. They are so intensely stupid. I don't know why she's getting so like freaked out about like what this adventure could be, but whatever. Yeah, the whole mystery of who's leaving them, it's like, who cares? Who cares? Does it matter? So you might be able to tell I'm not really having a great time with it. I'm glad it's a short audiobook, but I am already regretting using an Audible credit on it. I can very much say that. I am regretting that I bought this, unfortunately. Okay, I deeply disliked the Cinnamon Bun bookstore. I don't think I can say really anything good about it. Just the plot was stupid. It, like, you think you're gonna go into a very cozy romance, but there was way too much spice for that. Also, like, the vibe it gave is that it's gonna be a fall romance. It takes place in summer. Just so many things about it that I can nitpick through and through, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the main character's relationship, didn't like the vibes, thought it was not super interesting in any ways, had the stupidest mystery ever, and yeah, didn't enjoy it. We're giving it 2 stars. So let's talk about 2 more books where I like started to edit this video and realized how much footage I have at this point. So we're gonna start talking a little bit faster about these. So Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this one 5 stars. It is a arranged marriage between a vampire and a werewolf to kind of bring like a peace treaty to their people. Arranged marriage, they kind of go in little enemies to lovers and become like reluctantly working together to solve a mystery of like her best friend going missing and slowly fall in love. One thing I'm going to address is that a lot of people are kind of confused about why this was put into romance instead of romantasy, and there is a difference between romantasy and paranormal romance, though I will say those lines blur incredibly much. So in theory, technically this is not a romantasy, but at the same time I think that it would have fit better in that category just to the fact that yes, it is technically paranormal and there is not a paranormal section. There actually used to be in the original, like when Goodreads first started coming out, there was its own like paranormal romance thing. Yes, probably would fit better in paranormal. I understand why it isn't, because it doesn't have like the typical romantasy tropes right now of like witches and fae, but I think if you're looking at werewolf shifters, I think that those can 100% fit in romantasy. Anyways, I give this 5 stars. I think it was one of Ali Hazelwood's best books that I've read in quite a while, and I think that it was just truly masterfully done in so many ways. One big complaint I see from a lot of people is that it reads kind of like fan fiction. Yes, it does. It absolutely does. And I think that that just leads perfectly with the paranormal fantasy, paranormal romance like trope and the roots of paranormal romance. A lot of them feel kind of fan fiction-y, and I think it worked perfectly. Very tropey, very like over the top in a lot of ways, and I think that is the perfect representation of the genre, to be honest. So yeah, I loved it. It fully has thrown me back into my vampire and werewolf shifter era. I have no complaint. But on another hand, This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. So we're basically following, there's a girl, she goes home every summer with her best friend, and every summer she and her friend's brother have like a secret relationship going on. So they basically just hook up every summer and keep it quiet. Though one summer she is down there because her friend's about to get married and she's having a little bit of a crisis. She goes down and she and the brother decide to kind of pick things up differently and start a bit more of a relationship. I didn't enjoy it. I feel like the relationship progression was basically from every summer up to the last one was 100% just physical, and all of a sudden it 100% like switches into it's emotional, but we see nothing about why that's the case. We don't really see any conversations between them. All we see is a physical relationship, and there is like nothing that really convinced me that they loved each other aside from the fact that they've just been boning for several summers. So I think I gave this like a 2.5. It just wasn't really one for me, and I am kind of realizing Carly Fortune might not work for me, which is a shame because a lot of her books are placed like set in places that are like fairly close to where I live, so I kind of want to support it for that way, but also can't really get on board with her books. And now we are reading Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood, and I'm a pretty good chunk through this one. Really, really enjoying it. I do have to say this is similarly to how Bride was different from everything else she's written. This is also very different. We're following two characters, Rue and Eli. Rue works for like the scientific research company, and Eli is basically like a company that acquires other companies. I don't know enough about finance to kind of talk about that, but his company is buying out the one that she works for, and he's kind of like the enemy to her. But at the same time, they had met in a bar before this thing happened at work and had a crazy connection, and now they are kind of like having a physical relationship but trying to keep it very secret from everyone, and very much trying to keep it like convince themselves, I guess, that they have no feelings for each other, that it is 100% physical. But I really, really enjoy just the characters themselves. Both of them have a lot of trauma in their life. They have a lot of things they're working through, and you can really see them like dealing with that and kind of how they're working through it together. And you can see very reluctantly, like Rue as a main character, she does not want a relationship by any means, but Eli is slowly like just making her fall for him because he's so caring and really, really just wants to get to know her. And you can see that like reluctance in her, but I really, really like the way that you can see also that like slow admission that she actually really likes Eli as a person. And yeah, definitely one of her smuttiest books. A lot more sex than a lot of the other books, but I definitely prefer the way that it's written in this one. I think that, yeah, the sex scenes overall are much better written in this one, and in a way seems to be censored more on like the emotional connection as well, like during the physical act. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but there's really, really good communication between our characters, and I'm just really, really appreciating seeing that. So I'm finding this one really interesting. Definitely different from her other books, and I think it's been a lot less popular because of that, but I'm appreciating it. It definitely feels like something different, but in a very good way. So I'm gonna finish this tonight. Hopefully. I don't think I have that much left of it. Okay, this should not be a surprise, but 5 stars. I loved this. It felt so ridiculously different from all of Ellie Hazelwood's other books, and you know, it was fantastic that way. Both of the characters had such interesting personalities, such interesting things that they were working through, and it was just so much fun to see them work through things together and like ultimately admit that they were in love with each other. And yes, it was steamy, but it did also have a plot, so there we go. Yeah, very big departure from her other stuff, but really, really good. 5 stars, and yeah, that's it. Yeah, like I said, I'm trying to really quickly talk through all these. Funny Story by Emily Henry, another one I gave 5 stars, and another one that, you know, like I've really been loving a lot of Emily Henry's work lately. So this one we have 2 exes So two people, their exes left them for each other, and these two people decide to move in together because they're kind of at a point of not like knowing what their next steps are in life. Then the two exes get engaged and decide very quickly to have a wedding like within a few months. And while one of them calls our female main character to like apologize and check to make sure she's okay, she kind of like just brings forward like, just drunkenly like says that, oh, I'm actually dating my roommate, we are together. And it ends up kind of being like a fake dating romance where they're trying to prove that they are happily together, happily dating, to prove to their exes that they've moved past them. And at the same time, like both of them are really trying to figure out their life because they've obviously been left in such a lurch. And especially our main character, she has like very much given up so many aspects of her life to be in this relationship and is realizing that she definitely really gave up so many things that were important to her and doesn't really know what she's doing next in her life. She didn't really have many friends because they moved to a new city and has kind of spent her entire like time with her ex, and realizing that she kind of like fully let him dictate her life and that she needs to find a way to now reevaluate what she wants, but also really find a way to stand up for herself and to kind of prioritize herself in life. I liked it a lot. Did give it 5 stars. Like Emily Henry just does it for me every time. I love her writing. I love her characters. It always really makes me feel something. There's always some kind of nuanced discussion, like really getting into, I don't know, like aspects that I just personally relate to and things that I very much find like 100% realistic, and loved it. And next we have The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I really enjoyed this one too. This one was a 4-star for me. We are following a couple who they got fake married in university because it ended up giving, her main reason to get into it was that it gave cheaper student accommodation in university, and he is the heir to a supermarket chain, and one of the clauses in his inheritance is that he has to be married for 5 years before he can like get the money that is owed to him. And so they get married. She does not know this about him. They honestly are just like roommates who barely see each other. They don't really interact. They just kind of live together. And then they've spent all these years apart. 5 years later, he shows up on her doorstep and says, "Oh, sorry, we didn't actually get divorced. I don't know what you thought happened, but we didn't get divorced. And I need my wife to come to my sister's wedding at this like exotic tropical location because my family's questioning the fact that we've been married all this time. They don't know you. And I'm about to inherit my big amount of money. And I kind of need you to like show up and act like my wife so they don't question it." So this was super fun. You follow his family, who are truly like the worst of the worst people. They are rich assholes and entitled in every sense of the word. They are truly terrible people. And he's somebody who has tried to like not like distance himself so much from them over the years because he realizes just how truly awful they are. And then our female main character is just so fun. She's just such like a contrast from them. She is like, has bright pink hair, doesn't care about anything, like just really like 100% herself, is fully recognizing like how shitty these people are. But once they actually are in this situation where they're spending time together, they do realize that they actually have feelings for each other and they have this attraction. They really like over the years like have matured as people and are starting to realize like they do actually like each other. So overall, gave it 4 stars. Very fun. Love the fake dating trope. Love this like whimsical like destination vacation, seeing rich people act terribly. Like all those are things that I love. So obviously like all of this worked out well for me. And this one, what I'm starting right now, is actually kind of in the same vein where we're following a really rich family who are doing a destination wedding in Hawaii, and we're following like everything crazy that's happening. So we're following, I'm very not far into it, but there's a rich family. His family fortune has been depleted. So the family has come up with a plan that they're going to marry off their son to a potential heiress to get some money back. And we're following, so him and his best friend, who is more of a commoner. She's a doctor. She's lived next door to them and grown up with the kids. Like, so him and his sisters, and they've always been like really close. But I think we're going to realize like he might have feelings for her, or he's going to fall for her. While during the course of his sister's wedding, his family's trying to set up something. So this is the last book I have left to read, and I should come back when I'm done it. So hello, we are done. And I enjoyed this so much more than I expected to. Like, I really was going into this not expecting much, but this fully captivated me. I was so addicted to it and just so into seeing like all of this family drama because it was juicy and it was fun. So we're like really following this family as they are like nobles in the UK, and they're half Chinese because the mother was a former Chinese supermodel, and because of that they've like really like don't fit in quite to the same with a lot of British nobility, and they have lost their fortune over the years. But they have kind of devised this plan where they're gonna marry off the eldest son to a potential like heiress or princess or something to kind of like get all their money back. And this was such a ridiculous story of like class and the excess that this class has, and just all these levels of racism that go within it, and just at the same time ridiculously fun. So it dealt with some like very heavy topics, but also like intensely fun things, just because like I personally love rich people being terrible books, which I've repeated multiple times through this video, but I enjoy it a lot. And this 100% like delivered on that. Very, very fun. And I did end up enjoying it way, way more than I ever expected I would. And yeah, I'm giving it 4 stars. I actually think that this was intensely fun, and I would love if anybody had recommendations for books similar to this one of just like rich family people dramas and like intense family shit going on. Really, really good. And with this, we're officially done, all 20 books. So this has been a lot. Thank you for watching. I don't know if it will be a surprise to anyone, but I did decide that my favorite book of the year in this category and what I'm voting for is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I don't think this is a shock to anyone. It's definitely the one I raved about the most. And in terms of least favorite, Cinnamon Bun Bookstore for sure. That one was terrible. I hated it so much, and I do not see the appeal of that one at all. But thank you for watching this. If you're interested, I will have in a week's time a romantasy reading vlog, so I'll be doing the exact same things I did today, but reading all 20 of the romantasy nominees. So thank you for watching. If you haven't already, I would love if you would subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in a video very, very soon. Bye.